Greetings and welcome to Tryhard Mode. I'm Mark, and in this video we'll show you the first devlog for the detective game we started for the Brackeys Gamejam 2020.2, in which we'll be working on for the next weeks. All these coming up next. Alright, let's review the latest progress in our detective game, and also we wanted to apologize for the time we took in uploading a devlog or update to our YouTube channel. It still gets a little complicated for us, and it's taking us a bit to get used to creating video games and recording and editing these videos, as well as sticking to other stuff and also getting into game jams. Besides that, getting stuck in code for several days can get tiresome at times, but I'm sure that eventually we'll get used to the process and workarounds. For the time being, we'll return to uploading a minimum of a video weekly, preferably on weekends, with the intention of eventually uploading more than one, if not a devlog, at least a gameplay or maybe a review or opinion, but well, that will be further down the road. For the moment, let's review the progress we've had with our detective game. Let's start with the scene and the mechanics of the recorder I've been working on, and a little bit about our NPCs. The scene is still in a state very similar to the one we had in the Gamejam, but we've already added these rain and fog particles into the city to emphasize a little the setting of the noir style of the black and white detective films. A bit dark and maybe depressing. Not that we wanted it to be a depressing game, we wanted it to be more of a satire with some comedy, but at least try to achieve the setting and the visual style and environment from those detective movies from the 60s. As for the NPCs, we incorporated a new dialogue system with our characters, a little different from the one we had before, and that we liked better. We followed a tutorial from CodeMonkey that we'll put in the description of this video in case you're interested, but the cool thing is that now in our dialogue we have this type machine style mechanic where the conversation gets written as the character speaks. And what's great about this system is that in addition to allowing us to give it some urgency or transmit more information through the speed of the conversation and how the text moves along, we also have the option that if we want to skip something and just focus on the important details, we can keep clicking with our mouse and automatically the text box will skip ahead within the dialogue we have active at the time. This way we can improve the conversation with our NPCs. The player will have the ability to choose if he wants to get the information faster or if he wants a slightly more immersive experience and to pay more attention to the details. Here we still need to include some audio that goes along with the text and improve the UI and maybe choose another font that goes more with the style of the game. But at least the code already works correctly. In regards to the mechanics of the recorder, right now we have 4 buttons that we can use to control it. There are the left and right mouse clicks that control these 2 buttons. This way we can use the mouse to decide if we're going to fast forward or rewind the cassette or recording, which will allow us to get to the important parts of the recording or sections where we can trigger more actions with our character, like if we want to shoot faster with our gun or point faster while engaging in combat. Depending on which recording sections are more useful, these buttons will allow us to access them easier. Another button we use to control the recorder is the spacebar, that works as play or pause depending on whether there is another press button on the recorder. For example, here we're using the fast forward one, and if we press the spacebar, it will stop the recorder and will release any pressed button. And now that there is no button pressed, if we click the spacebar again, the recording will start playing, which is the button on the top. So now we have play, pause, rewind, and fast forward. And the last button we introduced is the tap button that will allow us to cycle between all the cassettes that we have in our inventory. At the moment, we left all the 4 basic ones inside the inventory by default, but normally they should function as pickups and look something like this. At least that's the general idea. And they will be dropped by bosses the moment we defeat them, or we will find them by following some clues or with some other progression system. But at the moment, we have them all in our inventory. And now, since we have an active cassette in our recorder, we can press play. And at the moment, the recording and the text start running. Here, the audio is still missing, but we can see our text sample. We have a different text for each of our cassettes, and if we stop the recording and switch between one cassette and another, we can see that it saved the state of the recording and the position of the text. This way we have a better control, and when switching to the shooting recording, we can save the position where there are more trigger actions in order to shoot faster. Or if we want to jump more often, we can save our jump recording in a convenient time mark. This way the players will have the ability to save the state of the cassettes and look for ways to make the most of them within the game. Let's see how the run cassette works. If we stop moving the character and play the run recording, the moment the word run, which we still need to highlight somehow, reaches the center of the cassette in our UI, at that moment our character will start sprinting, and although we can control the direction, it will only stop by itself after a short period of time. We will use this mechanic instead of a more common stamina system because we already have the recording tool and we don't want to saturate mechanics or information to the player. In addition to that recorder, the enemies on the screen, also the health bar that we still need to include, so we choose to solve the stamina system inside the mechanics of the recorder. We can use this running mechanic not only to move faster through the scene, but also we want to use it to avoid some kind of enemy, perhaps some explosive ones that you will want to avoid instead of facing in combat. You may find some barrels rolling in your direction, or if we want to dodge some vehicles or other obstacles that require fast movement, we can use this cassette. We also have a cassette to punch, and this triggers in the same way. Once the word hit gets to the center of our UI, which we still need to illustrate with some visual representation, the character will automatically turn to the cursor position and the attack will be triggered. So we can keep moving while fighting, and the leg animations will update accordingly. Here's a bug where the character gets damaged. Still need to work on the colliders and the code, but this will allow us to make the combat a little more dynamic than just standing still and attacking. You can take advantage of your mobility or take cover from projectiles and make the combat more entertaining and allow the player to develop some skills and take advantage of them. The jump cassette is also going to be another one that will be useful with some type of enemies, but also for mobility. We want different types of cassettes, some more useful in combat, other perhaps more useful in navigating the scene, and could be interesting to create some cassettes that helps you on interacting with NPCs, or in looking for clues, or perhaps in examining the environment. But for the moment, we can use our jump to move through vertical scenarios like the construction site, maybe look for shortcuts, or for better positioning in combat. And that's how our basic cassettes will work, with the mechanics of the recorder, the control of the character, and how the player will use them in the game. Another thing missing here will be some visual feedback, the moment we trigger actions with the recordings, but we're still stuck in creating particles and effects on top of our UI. We have not found tutorials that solve this with Cinemachine, because apparently we need to filter these effects through our cameras, but we'll be working on that for the next week. We want to solve this in a similar way to a rhythm game, where the moment the player hits the note accurately, the UI lights up with particles, lights and flash effects, so that the player can easily track what's going on. Finally, we're going to show you other areas in which Ellie has been working on that we still need to import to the scene of the game. That will be the creation of a shader that allows us to make translucent surfaces and obstacles that get in the way of our camera, as well as the combat mechanics she has created so far with firearms and melee combat. We will be working on adding this shader to all the obstacles on the scene, and Ellie will continue to refine the AI of our enemies, creating other variations for different enemies, and we'll also work on new animations to improve the interactions of our NPCs with our character. We thank you very much for staying until the end of this video. We'll be answering any questions or suggestions in the comment section, and if you're interested in our content and want to follow the creation of our projects, we invite you to leave a like and consider subscribing to our channel. For our part, that will be all. Just to wish you as always to have an excellent week and a lot of success in your projects.